what is the significance of blood being necessitated for the forgiveness of sins? Like, what is it about death that appeases our God? And hold on, not only our God, all the gods. All the gods wanted blood. All of them, dude, including Yahweh, including ours. Including our God, I mean. The only difference was he allowed the blood of animals to cover for sin temporarily until, obviously, they call Jesus the perfect sacrifice, the perfect lamb, the Lamb of God that was slain for the sins of the world, right? So the ultimate sacrifice. But what is it about blood? Like, why is the death of an animal and the blood being shed on the altar? Why is that the way that that this stuff works? You know, I could never, like, I don't, is it just death? Is it just that something needs to be punished? And maybe in the death, in the punishment, in the brutality, do you realize how freaking brutal and like gory? Have you ever seen pictures of what the Jewish altar at the temple looked like? What is it about death and sacrifice that appeases the wrath of our God? Like the Christian God, not, not these other gods, these other demon gods. But interestingly enough, the demon gods, the false gods, even they had their people sacrifice to them, whether it was animals or whether it was freaking humans. It's almost as if that realm, that divine realm, like requires what? Death of this dimension's beings? Like, what does that do up there? What does it actually do? Does it do something? Why would God make the Jews do this if it didn't do something?
I'm kind of mad at myself that I never even asked this question. Like, because you asked it and I'm just like, yeah, wait a second. How come I had never even thought of this? Like, because I always ask that weird stuff like that.
When
did you think about this?
Years, bro.
Oh,
my head's a mess. And then how much, okay, even though we don't have an answer to that, maybe somebody does. That'd be a great, somebody
please comment.
Oh,
let us know.
So sick. Then how much more impactful is the idea and the repetition in the New Testament of the blood of Christ?
Right. All over the place.
All over. Because it's the blood that was required in order to appease sin, or in order to appease God, in order for sin to be covered. You know what I mean? So there's something about death that allows God to look over sin, to forgive sin, to, you know what I mean? It's interesting, man. It's interesting.
It's very interesting. I mean, now I'm like really, really thinking about it. Like, this is all I'm gonna think about things, man.
You're welcome.
I don't know, man. I'm trying to, like, every corner of my brain right now. I'm trying to figure out like what.
I've never come up with an answer. I've never come up with anything. Like, there has to be something that, unless it's solely the fact that something has to die for sin, and in God's grace, knowing the beginning from the end, knowing the work of Jesus that was to come, he's like, I'll allow animal blood, as a temporary symbol of what I actually need, which is myself to die. I need to go die for you people, because that's the only thing that's going to do it. You know what I mean?
A part of me wants to, I'm just throwing this out there. Okay. Go ahead. If you have a thought, go ahead.
No, it just kind of came to me. Maybe the reason, dude, well, okay, hold on. I'm thinking about this in real time. My mind's about to explode. Yeah, so I was going to say, maybe the reason he mandated it was because it was a practice in the surrounding nations.
That's what I was going to. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
So he used something that was known to the surrounding nations as a mandate from their gods. Their
Right,
demons
right.
required it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
And especially human sacrifice. That was a demonic thing. The Jews
Sure.
never did that. God never requested that. They actually,
right.
dude, the Jews at one point started sacrificing. It said they're passing their children through the flames to Moloch. That's in the Bible, bro. Okay. The
Shut
Jews,
up.
yes, sir. The Jews
Why?
they started worshiping the gods
Oh.
around them. They started worshiping
Mm.
the gods around them.
Oh,
And in
okay,
order to
okay.
worship the gods around them, you had to sacrifice to the gods around them. And Moloch required child sacrifice. And so that's what they started doing.
Oh, dude.
So maybe God used a practice of the surrounding nations
Mhm,
so that when Jesus came and they started proclaiming the gospel of this
mhm.
is the Lamb of God that takes away the sins of the world, other nations around there would have been like, oh, well, we know all about sacrifice,
Right.
especially human sacrifice.
Right.
Wait,
Right.
you're saying God came and became a man and sacrificed himself to appease sin now and past and
Mhm.
future? And
Mhm.
that might make sense. That might make sense in the minds of the
Right.
others, you know.
Yeah.
But here's another argument. Maybe this doesn't work because, hey, this is a trip. Adam and Eve, first to sin, right?
Mhm.
Okay. After they got kicked out of the garden, or actually maybe even before they got kicked out of the garden, it says that God gave them clothing made of skins to
Mhm.
wear.
Mhm.
Where'd that skin come from?
Animal skin.
Correct. Were Adam and
Right.
Eve slaughtering animals and eating them before the fall?
No.
No. Some say that the skins that God clothed them with was the first sacrifice ever performed. And it was for the temporary forgiveness of their sin until Christ came, like everybody else, right?
Hmm.
That's where the skins came from, was from the first sacrifice ever performed.
I would think that I'm tracking with you, but I would think
Yeah.
that there'd be some more text on that, like in the Bible, like because
Why?
that's kind of a big one, isn't it? Like,
Where'd the skin come from?
I mean, yeah, because they weren't eating animals, they weren't eating meat.
No. And it says that God clothed them. Or God
Mm.
gave them clothing made of skin or fur or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Hey, and it would kind of make sense. Adam was the
Mm.
first. Adam and Eve, they were the first of God's people, right? Even after they sinned, they were still his people. They were still his lineage to bring about Christ. And that's what the Israelites were. They were his lineage that brought about
Right.
Christ. And guess what?
Hmm.
They had to sacrifice in order for God's wrath to pass over, you know? You don't think Adam had to?
Unless he was brought into, well, yeah, because then they did that. Um, that was part of the Jewish tradition after that, right? I mean, for animals to be sacrificed.
Yeah.
So they made a tradition out of that. So maybe that's how the tradition even came about in the Jewish culture.
It wasn't just a tradition, it was mandated by God.
Well, oh yeah, sorry,
You
mandated.
know what I
Yeah, you're
mean?
right.
So they weren't
Yeah.
just like, oh, it's a cultural thing. Our father Adam
Right,
did it.
right,
No,
right.
no. You've
Right,
got like Exodus, you've got Leviticus, like all of these
right.
books where God's like, this is what you're going to do and this is how you're going to do it, you know?